Hi, I'm Mark Willows from Clocks4Classics, and today we're going to look at fitting one of our UniTacho repair kits to this RVI Gen 1 type rev counter. Now these rev counters are made by both Smiths and Jaeger. This is a Jaguar one, and you can tell that it's an RVI Gen 1 because it has this wire loop on the back of the case. Now when you're installing the rev counter, it's important to keep this wire loop intact, so we remove it from the rev counter but we leave it intact in the car's wiring loom as it forms the supply to the car's ignition coil. So let's get started with fitting the kit. Well, the first thing we're going to do is just remove the glass and the bezel, and on this rev counter that's very easy, it just twists off. Sometimes you might find they're stiff, and in which case you need to apply some penetrating oil, but this one's nice and loose, and the bezel and glass just lift off, as you can see. Next we need to remove the rev counter from the case, and first of all we're going to remove this wire loop at the back. Now normally there's a nut just there, it's missing on this rev counter, but when the nut's there you remove it. You remove this little piece here, and the wire loop will come off, and you leave that connected to the vehicle. Now it's a matter of undoing the two screws that hold the rev counter into the case, so that's this one and this one. I'll just do that now. Okay, so now you can see we've got the mechanism of the rev counter removed from its case, and you can see that it consists of three main parts. So there's an outer circuit board here, an inner circuit board, and then behind the dial there's what we call the movement, which is the actual mechanism that moves the needle. So the two circuit boards are going to be, their function is going to be replaced by the circuit board from the repair kit. So we're going to disconnect those, but we're going to leave them in place because that's easier. So if you look, if I can just get close here, you can see that these here are the two connections there and there to the movement, and one's got a red wire connected to it just there, and one's got a black wire connected to it just there, and we want to cut those connections where they join the circuit board, so we want to disconnect them from the circuit boards, leaving as much length of wire in place as possible because they're going to connect to our new circuit board. So I'm going to first of all cut the red wire, and you can see that that joins the circuit board just here. I'm going to cut that. There we are, and if I follow the black wire through, it joins the circuit board on the other side. You can see it joins the circuit board just there. I'm going to cut that wire as well, and I'll pull that back through. So there we are, we have those two wires cut. Now the next thing I'm going to do is test the movement to check that it works, and also to check the polarity of the two wires. And the way I'm going to do that is by connecting them to a small AA battery. Now I need to strip the wires in order to do that, so I'm just going to stop the video for a moment while I do that. Okay, so I've stripped the two wires, and I'm going to take my AA battery, and I'm going to join the black wire to the negative end of the battery and the red wire to the positive end, and you can see if I do that the needle moves, so we know the movement is okay. Now if that doesn't work, try turning the battery around, because sometimes the colours are incorrect. So if that is the case, just make a note of that and make a note of which wire is the positive one. Usually it will be the red one, but not always. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is to mount our UniTacho circuit board. This is the circuit board, and you can see it's got two wires on this side, a white and an orange wire, and they connect to the two wires from our tacho movement, the two wires we've just been testing. And then the three wires on the other side, a red, blue and a black, they connect to the vehicle, and we'll talk about those later. So we need to choose a place to fix our circuit board. I'm going to fix it in place just with some hot melt glue, or you can use a sticky pad, and I'm going to mount it just here. That's a convenient place. Now the one thing you do need to watch out for is you can see that there's this small button here. That's the calibration button, and we need to leave that so that it is accessible. So I'm going to mount that circuit board now with some hot melt glue, and I'll be back in a moment. Okay, so I've got the UniTacho board mounted on the movement there, and the next thing we need to do is we need to join these orange and white wires to the tacho movement wires. So I'm going to join the white wire. It needs to join to the negative wire. Now when we tested that earlier, we saw that the negative wire was the black wire, which will usually be the case. So the way I'm going to do that is to use these small crimp connectors, and they're very easy to use. You just poke the two wires into the two holes at the end there, make sure they're poked right to the end, and then you use a pair of pliers and you press down. See if I can get that to focus a bit better. You press down on this button on the top there, and so I'm just going to do that now. So I'm going to cut the two wires as to the same length, put them into the connector, put the two wires into the connector, and make sure that the two wires go right to the end there. You can see that, you can just about see the wires through the casing of the connector. And then I'm just going to squeeze this button on the top, and it's important to make sure you squeeze that all the way around, so it's pushed right down all the way around. And that's the connection made. And then I'm going to do a similar thing with the orange wire. That needs to connect to the positive tacho wire, and we found out that that was the red wire, which will usually be the case. So I'm just going to do the same again there, cut the two to length, put the two wires into the connector, make sure they're pushed right to the end. Use a pair of pliers to poke this one in. There, they're pushed right to the end, and then I can just squeeze them together. Squeeze the button with a pair of pliers, and you'll see that some gel comes out of the connector. That gel is to seal around the wires and prevent any corrosion. So that's that part done. Just need to tuck those somewhere out the way, somewhere where they won't interfere with the movement of the needle. Make sure that the needle can still move freely. Now the other wires that are the wires which connect to the vehicle, and you can see we've got a red wire. That's the 12 volt supply to the tacho, a black wire which is the negative supply to the tacho, and a blue wire which connects to the coil, and that gives it the RPM signal. Now we've got a choice here. If the easy way to do this is simply to put a hole in the back of the case and a grommet, and to take those wires directly out and then join them to the vehicle. So if you want to do that, that's a very easy way to do it. If you want a slightly neater solution, what we can do is solder these wires to the back of the existing tacho connectors, and that's what I'm going to do here. So what I'm going to do is use this spade terminal on the back here, which was previously the positive supply to the tacho. I'm going to connect the red wire to the back of that spade connector, which is just here. Now before I do that, it's important that I disconnect that connector from the existing circuit board. So you can see it's got a small green wire connected to it there, just there, and I'm going to cut that connection so it's no longer connected to the existing circuit board. I'll cut that section of wire out completely, it's no longer needed. And then I'm going to solder our new wire onto the back of that so that we can use the spade connector as the 12 volt supply. Okay, so you can see now that I've soldered the red wire onto the back of that spade connector. So that spade connector will now be our plus 12 volt connection to the tacho. Now for the black wire from the UniTacho, what I've done is I've cut that to length and I've put a small eyelet on the end there. Now this needs to connect to, this is the negative supply or the earth to our tacho, so it needs to connect to the body of the tacho. So what I'm going to do, I've taken out one of the screws at the back here, and I'm going to put this eyelet just between the old circuit board and the movement there. So you can see just there, so that will be in contact with the body of the tacho, and I'm just going to put the screw back in. So there we are, that's made the earth connection to our UniTacho. So we've got one more wire to connect now, which is the blue wire from the UniTacho. And what I'm going to do is connect that to the back of this stud. So I'm going to thread the wire through and I'm going to solder it. And the way I'm going to solder it, just get it in view for you. I'm going to solder it just onto there because that point there connects directly to this stud. Now, there's no wires already attached to there, so there's nothing to disconnect from the old circuit board. I can just solder the blue wire straight onto the back of there. So there we are. You can see that I've soldered the blue wire onto the back of that stud there, or that piece of metal that connects to the back of that stud. So that's all of our wiring connected. So when we connect the tacho to the vehicle, the 12 volt supply will connect as before to that spade connector. The earth will be through the case of the tacho because we have it, the black wire from our UniTacho connected there to the metalwork of the tacho, and the coil connection will connect to that stud. Now, one other thing I should perhaps mention that is, if you happen to have a positive earth vehicle, then the red and the black connections will be swapped round. So this spade connector, you would want to connect the black wire to it, and you want to connect the red wire from the UniTacho to the body of the tacho because it's positive earth. So that's our UniTacho board fitted. The next stage is to calibrate it, and that is done using this calibration button here, and there's a separate video on that. Thank you for watching.